Hello and welcome to the daily newspaper analysis. Today we shall be discussing the newspaper of the 31st of March. So coming to the first article, Rivers, Floodplains, Cities and Farmers. Now this is a very important article. The context could be simply that 22nd of March was the World Water Day, and as we had discussed, the topic for this year's World Water Day is nature and water conservation. So in that context, probably this article has been written. Primarily this article becomes important because this does not only talk about the conservation of rivers but focuses on a new area of conservation, which is the floodplains. Now before we begin, some background is what is vital. First and foremost, what is a river? A river is simply a naturally flowing stream of water, or fresh water for that matter. Now the area around this river is what is known as floodplains. Now what happens is that as this river flows, the river has a tendency to deposit sand and other eroded material like gravel and pebbles on its surroundings. So this area gets a unique geography to it, and this is what comprises the floodplains. Not only is this area very fertile, but also the floodplains are known for being efficient aquifers. Now by aquifers we simply mean that water storing areas. Now what happens is that as the river is going to flow through this area, the geography of this area is such that this area is very porous, and as a result of which water from the river has a tendency to percolate in this area and making this area an aquifer. Another source of water here is that whenever water is coming to the river from the surrounding catchment area, the water again is passing through the floodplains, and again the water percolates down primarily because of the geography of this area, and this again contributes to high levels of water in this particular region, making it an efficient aquifer. So this is what is a floodplain, and the aquifer nature of the floodplain is what is making it an efficient source of fresh water. So that is what this editorial is discussing, that it is not merely the rivers which are a source of fresh water, but also the floodplains. So that is also the first issue, that the floodplains are indeed a new source of water. Also with regards to floodplains, what you should know is that they are a local source of water. Also this is a non-polluting source of water, primarily because water is itself getting filtered by gravity itself. And another thing is that this is a perennial source of water. It is a non-invasive source of water. So that is what is the importance of this new source of water, which is the floodplain. So that is one analysis. Another analysis is with regards to the principle of conserve and use. Now the editorial here discusses that what is required for the efficient utilization of water from floodplains is that this principle of conserve and use is what should be applied. By this principle, we simply mean that water should not be extracted from the floodplains beyond the recharging capacity of the floodplains. So that is one important analysis which should be kept in mind before the government seeks to effectively utilize this particular water resource. So that is one important issue here. Another thing which has been analyzed is with regards to the challenges which the rivers in India are facing. Now basically the challenges are twin. The first challenge which Indian rivers are facing is that of abysmally low water flowing in these rivers now. The issue here is because of climate change. We all know because of climate change, rainfalls have decreased and rather they have become erratic. And as a result of which the flow of water in natural rivers is something that is on a low. So that is one particular cause of concern. Another issue with regards to the challenge which the rivers in India are facing is due to the indiscriminate use of water from these rivers. Now this water is being used by the agriculture sector, this is being used by industries, this is being used in the urban cities. So as a result of this indiscriminate use, also what is happening is that there is abysmally low content of water in the rivers. So this is one part of the challenge. The second challenge is pollution in the water bodies, which is a major cause of concern. And this pollution is something that is taking place primarily because of untreated sewage which is entering the rivers, and the second cause here is the effluents which is entering from the industries. So these are the two causes of pollution in the rivers, and this is what is comprising of the challenge. So to deal with this, the author here is advocating that floodplains as a source of water is something that the government should explore. So that is one analysis. Another analysis is with regards to the economic benefits which floodplains can have. Now you all know that water is something that the government is charging. Now, an example of Delhi is what has been given, that in Delhi, the cost of water is rupees 30 per kiloliter. So if on this particular rate only the government plans to sell water from the floodplains, then it can give benefits to the tune of rupees 162 crore a year in Delhi itself. So this can be one form of economic benefit. Another form of economic benefit could be that when water is something that is going to be present or available in abundance, then definitely it is going to boost agriculture. Also, it is going to help industries growth. So in that context also, this will be an economic benefit. So that is what has been analyzed. Another thing is with regards to engaging farmers. Now, this is a new model what has been proposed here. Now, what you need to understand is that whenever a river is flowing, the area around that, being the floodplain, is largely the area which is used for agriculture, and it is under farmers. So instead of acquiring the land from farmers to utilize the floodplains, a newer model is what is being proposed. This is a PPP model, the public-private partnership model. But what is different in this model is that the private sector is going to comprise of the farmers. Now, what the author here is advocating is that the farmers should give their land, the agricultural land, on lease for exploiting the floodplains. And for this, an assured income is what the farmers should get. This will have twin benefits. First and foremost is that the government can get access to floodplains without acquiring the land. And another thing is that this can help give a fixed income to the farmers in this particular region, which is very much required because of the falling farmer incomes in the country. And also the farmers could grow crops here which are less water intensive. For example, nuts can be grown here, or for that matter, forests can be grown here. So this is something that has been advocated, that this kind of a model, a PPP model, where the government is partnering with farmers to help exploit the floodplains, which could be a benefit for both farmers as well as the people at large. So that is one model which has been given, and this is an important model. Another thing definitely is the ecological benefits of conserving the floodplains. If this area is something that is conserved, then definitely it is going to have positive impacts on the ecology. This entire region of floodplains is something that the editorial is discussing should be declared as a kind of a water sanctuary, which would prevent erosion of this area and also heal the river ecosystem, and it will restore the ecological balance in the floodplains. It will curb illegal extraction of water in this particular region. It will stop pollution by local agencies and industries and encourage cities to more responsible behavior in waste management. So all of these are some benefits which can happen if this particular area is declared as a water sanctuary. So this is something that has been analyzed, and this is something that is important. So now this article is very important because this discusses about floodplains. Generally, we have a tendency in our answers also to limit our discussion to rivers also. So if in that context one remembers to quote about floodplains also, so it adds depth to our answer. So that is going to be the relevance. Now coming to the next article, the illusion of participation. The context here is that is the social media at present acting as a political media? Now the background we all know is the Cambridge Analytica case, which I have been discussing in previous videos also. Now a large amount of data from Facebook users is something that has been mined by the company Cambridge Analytica, and it is said to have influenced the election results of the US president himself and also in Brexit. So that is the background aspect. Now coming to the issues which have been discussed. The first issue is with regards to a seismic jolt to America's democracy. Now what is important here is that the question itself is being raised on the world's biggest democracy. Though India is also the world's biggest democracy, and in fact in numbers India is the world's biggest democracy, but you should know that America is the world's oldest democracy and it is considered as one of the most vibrant democracies in the entire world. Also, the election process, the cost of election in America is way above India. So in that context, in the context of magnitude, America's democracy is bigger than India in some respect. So that is something that is being questioned, that one of the biggest democracies, and a jolt is what has been given to this democracy, primarily because of a social media platform which is Facebook. So that is one very pertinent question which is emerging, that is the social media increasing or is it decreasing democracy? That is one important analysis. Another thing is, which has been discussed, is the space bias of the social media. Now, what you need to understand is that in the past, the modes of communication, for example, the Vedas, or for that matter, the religious texts, they had a time bias, which means is that even if they did not spread across a vast area, they have stood the test of time, and even after centuries of time, the material and the data remains to be relevant even today. But what is happening with social media is that the data that social media is generating is something that has a space bias, which means that it has a wide spread. If one message is something that is written in one small town, then it can have a global outreach. But the time factor is something that is minimal in social media. Any viral video, or for that matter, any piece of news has a very limited time span. And this is something that is causing huge ripples and instability in the system. Because any news has a short life, but a huge extent of reach. So that is what has been analyzed with regards to social media. Another thing which is very important here is the change in the nature of state which is taking place in the aftermath of social media. This can be a direct question, that how is social media impacting the state? Now what is happening is that with the rise of social media, there are some practices like surveillance. Now in the past, surveillance was something that was rejected by the people. But today, in the backdrop of social media, what is happening is that surveillance as a means of providing safety has gained acceptability in the minds of the people. And for that matter, even legitimacy in many parts of the world. Until recently, in the year 2016 only, is the right to privacy that has been acknowledged in India also as a fundamental right. Now what you need to understand is that the government is going very surveillant, and also the Aadhaar project for that matter is under this is being considered by the Supreme Court primarily for this reason, because it is being viewed that the Aadhaar itself is a means to conduct surveillance on the citizens. So this is something that is changing vis-a-vis the behavior or the nature of the state. Another issue with regards to rising social media, or for that matter technology and e-governance, is that this is something that is increasing centralization in the government. Now this is one important analysis, because primarily the aim of the government should be decentralizing of power. But what is happening is that with e-governance, and for that matter social media, centralization is something that is happening. Even in the Aadhaar project, what is happening is that the government is going to make the policy of distribution of PDS, and it is on the ground level that only implementation is what has to happen. The personnel who is functioning on the field will have no discretion. For that matter, even if a poor person, a laborer, comes for getting his PDS claim, and that person's fingerprint is something that is not going to get matched to his Aadhaar biometric, then in that context, the personnel here cannot give him food, which even if he knows the person is liable to get. So this is something that is a cause of concern, because this removes the decision making power from the lower rungs of the state and concentrates it with the higher echelons in the state, and this is something that leads to centralization. So that is one important analysis, that the nature of the state is becoming more and more intrusive, it is becoming more and more centralized. So that is one important analysis. Another thing is the impact that that social media is something that is having on democracy. Now there is an illusion, the editorial discusses, there is an illusion that social media tends to increase democracy. Now how does this happen is that if there is any criticism that the citizen wants to vent out against the government, then the citizen can voice his opinion. And this is something that we are seeing also, that in many cases it is after social media posts that justice is something that is being given, or for that matter the administration is coming into action. So there is no denial of the fact that social media does act as a tool to increase democracy. But the editorial criticizes this claim and says that this is merely an illusion, and participation is something that is not happening at the true level, rather it is mere following. This is something that even happened in the Facebook case. For example, an advertisement is something that is made based on the psychological study of that particular user. So in that case, a person is not expressing his true will, rather a person is acting as a follower of a planned advertisement campaign. So that is one threat which has happened to democracy. Even in the case of US election, it will become very difficult to analyze whether people have voted for President Trump on their own wish, or have they voted for President Trump after a propaganda is what has been carried on the social media. So that is a question which will always remain unsettled, and this is something that does raise questions upon social media's negative impacts on democracy, and this is the most important analysis for us. A question in this regard can be expected. Another thing is about the checks on social media. Now here the editorial discusses that the check on social media is something that has to come from the civil society itself. At present, what is happening is that the capitalists have a huge amount of stakes in social media, and because of the usage of social media now with politics, what is happening is that a nexus is what is developing between social media giants and political leaders in the world, and as a result of which checks on this is something that is not going to efficiently come. So for this, what is required is that the people all over the world come together and they ask and they demand for more checks and regulation of social media, which is in the interest of the citizen. So that is one important analysis. This issue of social media and Cambridge Analytica case is going to be one of the most important topics for 2018 mains. So that is going to be the relevance. Now coming to the next article, Build for Change. The context here is with regards to the NMC Bill. Now, what has happened here is that the Union Cabinet has approved 6 amendments to this bill. The details of this bill is something that we have continuously been discussing in the past, so I shall not be repeating those. Some new issues is what is important, which I have included. The first update is with regards to the bridge course. Now, this bridge course is something, the idea of a bridge course has been axed by the Union Cabinet. It has decided that the bridge course is something that is not going to be available now, despite the fact that in our previous many discussions, we discussed in detail how the bridge course was something that was good for healthcare system in India, but this has been axed for now, so that is something that is important. Another thing with regards to the appointment of the NMC members is what is vital. Now, the government has not accepted an amendment. There were demands that the appointment of the NMC members should take place independently, or it should take place through an election. Now, this is something that the government has rejected. The appointment is something that is going to be done by the government, and this is believed to be a huge amount of interference by the government in the NMC. Another thing is that the appellate authority to the NMC will be the central government itself. So in that context also, this becomes important, that it is the government which is going to control the NMC, and independence of this body is something in question. So that is one important analysis. Another thing which is important is with regards to state representation. Now, in the past, it was decided that 3 members will be there, 3 part-time members from different states will give state representation, but this has been increased to 6. But the editorial is again criticizing this. It is saying that at least there should have been 10 members who should have represented states. The one size fit all policy is something that should not happen, and states have specific demands, and in that context, states should have more representation. So that is one important analysis. Another analysis is with regards to the private college seats. Now, at present, 40% of the seats in private college have their fee regulated by the government. This number has been increased to 50% now. This amendment is what has been accepted by the government. So here the editorial is saying that increasing this number to 50% will result in a scenario where the remaining 50% will see a fee hike, and as a result of which, what will happen is that the fee for an MBBS course in a private college is going to skyrocket. So that is one criticism against this particular amendment. Another issue which is very important is that this bill has accepted for an exit exam for the MBBS. Now, at present, what happens is that in the final year, MBBS students have to give a final year exam, and this is a college exam, or for that matter, a university exam. Now, what is going to happen is that in all India, exit exam is going to happen at the final year for all MBBS students. This will ensure that quality doctors are something that are produced. So that is something that is important, but this is again going to face some challenges as to what will be the pattern of this exam, who will conduct this exam. It will become difficult. It is a administratively difficult task to conduct an all India level exit exam for MBBS students. So that is some technical difficulties which has been discussed here. Another thing which has been discussed is the interstate variation which is going to happen primarily, which does exist at present, which has not been addressed by the NMC bill. Now, one thing is that the education is something that has variation across the states, and as a result of which, it might become difficult for some students to clear this exit exam. So that is one issue. Another thing which we had discussed is that the present Medical Council of India has such norms that in many states there are no medical colleges. For example, in many northeastern states like Nagaland, there is not even a single medical college. So this again results in an interstate variation which needs to be corrected and which has not been focused upon. So that is something that has been analyzed in this particular editorial. NMC bill is important, and this is the update for that. So that is the relevance. Now, coming to the next article, exposing fault lines. Now, the context here is with regards to the communal clashes in West Bengal and Bihar. Now, these kind of issues, whenever they happen, what becomes important is that you should use them as an example. A direct question will never come as to what happened in West Bengal, or who was wrong and who was right. These kind of questions is something that UPSC will never question. UPSC is simply going to ask you a question that there is a tendency of increasing intolerance in the country. So in that context, one should give such kind of current and relevant examples. So this shows that our current knowledge is updated. So that is how this editorial has to be discussed. Now, coming to the issues, the first issue here is with regards to the religious processions. Now, what is happening here is that this particular issue with regards to West Bengal is in the Asansol Raniganj area in West Bengal. What was happening was that there was a religious procession of Ram Navami, and this is something that led to the communal violence in West Bengal. Now, at present, there is lack of clarity as to who was responsible. Some details is what has to come, but the issue is that time and again what is being seen is that the religious processions are acting as a pretext for communal polarization So should these religious processions be stopped? These kind of questions are something that are going to emerge. Should the administration be more cautious while giving permissions to religious processions? All of these are causes of concerns, and some questions are going to be raised in that regard. Another thing is the role of local administration. Now, it is upon the local administration to isolate areas and the causes of violence, and for that matter, tension. And also, whenever such kind of clashes is what takes place, the local administration is first to come into action. So, in that context, what has been analyzed is that the role of local administration is weakened, and some introspection is required in this regard, because such kind of violence is being seen time and again, and that is one cause of concern. Another thing is the politicization of this issue. Now, what has happened is that in the backdrop of 2019 general election coming up, what is being feared is that these kind of communal violence is going to increase, and also it will have a political angle associated to these violence, and this is something that is a cause of concern which has emerged. So that is one analysis. Another thing is that in the entire northern states of India, what is being seen is time and again there is increasing intolerance, and a question or an essay in this regard can definitely be expected in UPSC. Intolerance is a very important issue at present, so that is going to be the relevance here. Now with this we finish today's discussion. I thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you tomorrow.